I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you're being assigned a task.
Okay.
But this isn't a normal assignment from a boss or a teacher. This is a task that actively breaks the very laws of physics.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a
Wow.
demand that completely ignores the established rules of biology, of nature,
Hmm.
and the kicker is you are told that completing this absolute literal impossibility is the one and only way for you to achieve true, elevated enlightenment.
I mean, it's a really profound and deeply uncomfortable proposition when you phrase it like that.
Right.
Because when we're told something is physically impossible, our brains are basically hardwired to just shut down that whole avenue of inquiry. We categorize it as a dead end.
Yeah, we label it a waste of time and move on to something practical.
Exactly. But this text we're looking at, it asks this dangerous question. Like, what happens when you are forced to sit right there staring at that dead end and you're told the wall in front of you is actually just an illusion?
And that question is the whole driving force of today's deep dive. We have this really fascinating, remarkably dense text in front of us today.
Makes sense.
It was authored on October 23, 2006 by a writer known as Diaform Buddha. And the translation we're analyzing today was edited by Kinyu.
And the title alone really sets the mood right away,
Oh, absolutely. It's called Three Celestial Cultivation Games for Everyone.
which is such a specific phrasing.
Right. And before we jump into the actual games themselves,
Yeah.
our mission today is to sort of decode the radical philosophy buried inside this text. We want to understand how it challenges, like, every single boundary we place on our own potential.
Well, and the terminology in that title gives us our first major clue about what we're getting into.
You mean celestial cultivation?
Yeah, because celestial cultivation isn't about, gardening. It refers to the core philosophy of Lifechanyuan.
Which, for those who might be unfamiliar, is essentially a spiritual and philosophical framework presented by the author.
Right, and it's centered entirely on this idea of human ascension,
Mm-hmm.
the belief that by fundamentally altering how we perceive reality, humans can actually elevate themselves.
Like elevating from an ordinary, biologically bound existence to this higher celestial state of consciousness.
Exactly. And calling these exercises games is this incredibly disarming tactic.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it invites this sense of playfulness into a space that is, quite frankly, designed to shatter your worldview.
Because these are definitely not physical games. You aren't rolling dice or keeping score or moving pieces around a board.
Oh, not at all.
They are these rigorous, almost punishing mental exercises. They serve as the practical application of what Lifechanyuan calls unconventional thinking.
And the entire foundation of this text, it really rests on one incredibly bold claim the author makes.
Yeah, the quote is, "There is nothing impossible in the universe, only things that thinking has not yet achieved."
I mean, that single sentence redefines the whole architecture of reality.
It really does.
By saying only things that thinking has not yet achieved, the author completely shifts the burden of limitation. In our normal lives, we hit a wall and we blame the universe.
Right, we say, well, gravity's too strong or, biology doesn't work that way.
Exactly. But this framework argues that the failure isn't in the physics of the universe at all. The failure is strictly within the limits of your own imagination.
The universe is malleable, but human thought is rigid.
You nailed it.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to truly understand how this unconventional thinking operates in practice, we have to start exactly where Diaform Buddha starts.
With game one.
Right. And the first game is this challenge that launches direct, unapologetic attack on our baseline understanding of life and death.
It serves as a masterful starting point, really. The author uses the physical world to build a psychological trap.
The tangible, everyday reality we think we get.
Yeah, a trap for the conventional mind.
So here are the very precise instructions the text gives you for game one. You are told to find a flower pot.
Simple enough.
Right, and you fill this pot with the absolute best soil you can possibly find. Then you need to locate a dried twig or a flower stem.
But the text is highly specific about this twig.
Extremely. It needs to be about 1/3 the length of a chopstick, and you have to ensure that it still has bark on it. But here is the really critical condition.
This is where it gets wild.
It must be definitively dead. The author explicitly states it must be incapable of sprouting or growing roots.
The methodology here leaves absolutely zero wiggle room for, natural biological phenomena.
Right, you can't just find a dormant twig waiting for spring.
Or a sick plant that just needs some water. You are instructed to find an object that has objectively crossed the threshold of biological death.
Okay, so you take this dead stick, you insert it into the flower pot, and you water it. Your assigned task is to then try every possible method to make that dried twig grow roots and sprout.
Which sounds insane.
Completely. And the author makes the massive claim that the mystery of life is hidden within this very task. If you actually manage to make this dead stick root and grow, you achieve the ultimate goal.
You transcend humanity and become a celestial.
Which, I mean, notice the brilliant cruelty of this setup. You are providing the perfect environment for life. The rich soil, the hydration.
The core subject, the twig itself, is completely stripped of its biological potential to actually use any of it.
Right, so hold on. If the text demands it be definitively dead,
Mm-hmm.
how is this anything other than just an exercise in madness? Because biologically, asking me to sprout a dead stick is like asking me to turn on a laptop that doesn't just have a dead battery, but has literally had all of its internal wiring ripped out.
Melted down into a puddle of plastic, basically.
Exactly. How can thinking, no matter how unconventional, possibly fix a dead stick? Staring at dead wood isn't going to spontaneously generate cellular structure.
Okay, so the friction you are experiencing right now, that is the exact mechanism the game relies on.
Wait, my frustration is the point.
Yes. You are looking at the biological reality, relying on the rules of cellular biology. But the mechanics of this exercise have absolutely nothing to do with botany.
Really?
Not at all. It is designed to force a rupture in your mind's rigid categorization of what is possible and what is impossible.
A forced rupture. Okay, tell me more about how the author expects that mechanism to actually work. Like, what does a rupture look like in practice?
Think about the psychological journey of actually doing this. You plant the stick, you water it, you apply fertilizers, you try talking to it.
You try every method you can conceive of.
Right. And as you do this, your logical mind is constantly screaming that the task is useless. It's telling you you're wasting time.
Because you are. Physically, anyway.
Exactly. But by focusing your intense, sustained intent on a guaranteed physical failure, your mind eventually exhausts its conventional toolbox.
It gives up on chemistry. It gives up on biology.
Yes. And according to the Lifechanyuan philosophy, it is only in that profound moment of total logical exhaustion, when the mind realizes physical action is entirely useless, that consciousness is forced to search for solutions outside of the physical plane.
Oh, wow. So the dead twig is essentially just a prop.
Pretty much.
The soil, the water, they are all just misdirection to keep your physical brain busy while your deeper consciousness gets frustrated enough to finally take over.
That's a great way to put it. The twig is a mirror reflecting your own ontological limitations.
Meaning my own beliefs about what's real.
Right. If you truly accept the core premise that nothing is impossible, that the universe is subordinate to consciousness, then the twig's lack of cellular life isn't the actual barrier.
My unwavering belief in the finality of death is the barrier.
Precisely. The text implies that reality is subjective. The game breaks your reliance on the objective rules of life and death.
It forces you to cultivate a state where absolute physical boundaries are just viewed as mere suggestions.
Exactly. Suggestions to a celestial mind.
It sounds like an incredibly agonizing meditation technique, honestly. You sit with this piece of dead wood until your fundamental concept of reality just fractures.
But that fracture is the entire point. It's the birth of the celestial state. You are breaking the gravity of ordinary human logic.
Okay, so if the first challenge requires us to project life into a dead object, the text definitely doesn't let us rest there.
Not at all. Game 2 ramps it up significantly.
It completely abandons the slow, controlled environment of a flower pot. It asks what happens when the universe projects absolute total nothingness onto us.
We move from attempting to generate life to just trying to survive an apocalyptic void.
The contrast between the two is striking.
It really is. We shift from a deliberate, solitary meditation to a sudden, chaotic, and terrifying deprivation. It tests a completely different dimension of human resilience.
Let me lay out the parameters of Game 2 for you, because they read like a literal nightmare.
Oh, it's bleak.
Suddenly, without warning, the sun and the moon lose their light. Gone.
Total darkness.
Right. All power sources are immediately cut off. But it gets worse. The author explicitly states that candles, flashlights, and car lights no longer work.
Which is a crucial detail.
Earthquakes have collapsed the houses. All communication devices are non-functional. There is no water. Food is incredibly hard to find.
Complete isolation.
Yeah, you cannot contact any distant relatives or friends. The weather is exceptionally cold, and all around you, people are crying out in despair.
And then the prompt just coldly asks,
What would you do?
Right. Look at how methodically the author strips away every single pillar of human security.
It is a systematic dismantling of everything that keeps our psychological architecture intact.
Exactly.
And here's where it gets really interesting to me. Most survival scenarios give you at least a sliver of hope or some physical tool to utilize.
Sure, like rubbing two sticks together.
Yeah, you might be lost in the woods, but you have a shoelace and a knife, so you can build a shelter. But this scenario, it's like being trapped in a sensory deprivation tank that is actively trying to freeze you to death.
The author has removed every physical, psychological, and social coping mechanism we have.
The removal is total.
Yeah.
But you mentioned a crucial detail earlier, the suspension of physics itself.
Yes. The candles.
Right. Why wouldn't candle work? That's not a power grid failure.
And taking that failure of the candle into account is what elevates this from a simple disaster scenario to a full-blown metaphysical crisis.
Because if the sun goes out, you have an astronomical catastrophe.
And if the power goes out, you have an infrastructure collapse. But if a simple, ancient chemical reaction like combustion of candle burning suddenly stops working...
It means the very laws of thermodynamics have been rewritten.
Exactly. The universe has fundamentally revoked the rules of nature. Taking away fire isn't just taking away light, it is stripping humanity of the very first tool that separated us from the dark.
You can't rely on science, you can't rely on nature, and you certainly can't rely on your community, because the text specifically says everyone around you is crying in despair.
You are entirely isolated in a broken universe.
By removing light, warmth, communication, and basic physics, the text forces you to confront absolute nothingness.
The first game asked if your mind could overcome a localized instance of death. This second game asks a much larger question.
Can your mind provide its own elimination and sustenance when the external physical universe provides absolutely zero?
That's the test. It's a test of whether unconventional thinking can literally generate heat in a freezing void.
That is wild.
Well, if the core premise holds that nothing is impossible, then depending on an external heat source like a fire or the sun, is just a limitation of your current unevolved thinking.
I see. So in this absolute void, a celestial mind wouldn't freeze.
No, and it wouldn't succumb to the despair around them either. It would have to internally generate the reality of warmth and light. It is the ultimate test of internal sovereignty versus external dependence.
It really forces you to realize how much of our sanity is just outsourced to our environment.
Oh, absolutely.
The sun comes up, so we feel safe. The lights turn on, so we feel in control. Strip all that away, and you have to find out what is actually left inside the architecture of your own mind.
The author wants you to evaluate your internal reserves. When the external world offers nothing but cold, dark terror, does your consciousness have the strength to sustain you without a single physical prop?
So we've survived the passive freezing void. But the pacing of this text is relentless. Game 3 shifts the parameters yet again.
It doesn't let up.
No. We leave the sensory deprivation of the dark and are thrown into an immediate, visceral, adrenaline-fueled threat in broad daylight.
We move from the philosophical flower pot to the existential void and finally arrive at the immediate reality of a predator.
So, Game 3 sets this incredibly tense scene. You suddenly find yourself standing completely alone in an endless grassland.
Okay.
You are surrounded by thousands of hungry wolves. They are eyeing you menacingly, and they are closing in.
Terrifying.
But here is the absolute rule of this scenario, laid down explicitly by the author. Quote, "Don't think anyone will come to rescue you. It is impossible."
And then comes the final test.
Right. The question is simply, now, how would you escape the wolves?
Notice how the author returns to building an entirely airtight enclosure around the reader's logic.
Airtight is right. But honestly, if I'm standing in an endless grassland with thousands of wolves, and the text guarantees no one is coming,
Yeah.
biology and physics dictate that I am wolf dinner. The physical body has zero geographic options here.
None.
Endless grassland means no trees to climb, no cliffs to scale, no caves to hide in. A mindset shift, no matter how unconventional, does not stop the physical kinetic energy of a wolf's jaw closing on my arm.
In the physical realm, your chance of escape is 0%.
Zero.
But your deduction of the physical reality there is flawless, and it brings us to the exact paradox the author requires you to face.
Because the physical escape is explicitly negated by the parameters of the game.
Exactly. So if physical escape is completely impossible, but the text operates on the foundational law that nothing is impossible to an elevated mind, where does that leave the solution?
It leaves us with a scenario where you can only win by refusing to play the game on the board provided.
Precisely. The solution must be metaphysical. You cannot outrun thousands of wolves, you cannot fight them barehanded, and you cannot be rescued.
Therefore, the thinking that has not yet achieved a solution has to be a type of thinking that transcends the physical threat entirely.
That's it.
I keep thinking about how this resembles a lucid dream.
Oh, that's a good comparison. How so?
Well, if you're having a nightmare where a monster is chasing you, the conventional reaction is to try and run faster within the dream's logic.
Right, your dream legs feel heavy.
Yeah. But the actual escape doesn't come from running. The escape comes from realizing you are dreaming, taking control, and simply changing the environment, or just waking up.
You don't beat the monster physically, you transcend the plane where the monster exists. And taking that lucid dream analogy a step further, Lifechanyuan philosophy suggests that our waking physical reality actually operates on similar principles of consciousness.
Really?
Yeah. If the mind is truly the ultimate arbiter of reality, then the endless grassland and the thousands of wolves are just constructs. They are a localized frequency of reality that your consciousness is currently tuned into.
So to escape the wolves, you have to realize that you are the architect of the grassland.
The conventional mind looks at the enclosing wolf pack and asks, how do my physical legs run away? But the unconventional mind, the celestial mind, looks at the wolves and asks, why is my consciousness currently manifesting this predatory scenario?
And how do I shift my frequency to a reality where the wolves hold no form?
Exactly. You escape by elevating your consciousness to a state where the physical bite literally has no reality.
Wow. All three games follow this identical escalating trajectory. They present a physical impossibility, a dead twig, a broken universe, an inescapable predator.
Purely to force the mind into a metaphysical breakthrough.
They systematically hunt down and destroy your reliance on biology, on physics, on physical survival instincts.
And they replace all of them with the supremacy of conscious thought.
This has been an incredibly intense journey through the text. Let me summarize the terrain we've covered. We've explored three distinct scenarios crafted by Daoform Buddha, designed to break the human mind out of its conventional limitations.
Starting with Game 1.
Right, attempting to resurrect a definitively dead twig to challenge our deepest biological assumptions.
Then Game 2.
Surviving an impossible absolute void where even fundamental combustion fails, challenging our reliance on external energy and the laws of physics.
And finally, Game 3.
Facing certain visceral doom by a pack of wolves in an endless grassland, which forces us to transcend our physical survival instincts entirely.
And tying all of this together is the singular, powerful philosophy of Lifechanyuan. The idea that impossibility is not a fact of the universe, but merely an illusion created by a lack of evolved thinking.
So what does this all mean? You, listening right now, are probably not going to be dropped into a freezing void with broken candles anytime soon.
Let's hope not.
And you hopefully won't find yourself surrounded by thousands of wolves in an endless meadow.
Yeah.
So why does a deep dive into this esoteric metaphysical text actually matter to our daily lives?
Well, it matters profoundly because of the psychological barriers we construct every single day.
How so?
From an evolutionary standpoint, the human brain is basically an energy-saving machine. It loves to categorize things as impossible just to save cognitive load.
Oh, that makes sense. If we had to intensely reevaluate every single dead end we encountered, our brains would burn out.
Exactly. But that evolutionary shortcut becomes a modern trap. We face a difficult conversation at work or a struggling relationship, a financial hurdle, maybe a creative block.
And our conventional minds immediately assess the physical or social reality.
Right. They run the evolutionary algorithm and say, well, fixing this is impossible. The wall is too high.
We treat our everyday problems exactly like the dead twig.
Yeah.
We say, this relationship or this career path is incapable of sprouting, so I'm not even going to waste the energy trying.
And these games are essentially extreme exposure therapy for that exact evolutionary habit. They aren't about actually fighting wolves or becoming celestial botanists.
They are sophisticated tools for building mental elasticity.
That's exactly what they are. They train your brain to notice when you are accepting a boundary simply because society or your own fear has conventionally accepted it as a boundary.
So by practicing these extreme, impossible scenarios in your mind, you rewrite your neurochemistry.
You build the psychological muscle required to push past your own self-imposed limitations.
You train yourself to look for the metaphysical escape hatch when the physical room appears to be completely locked.
You strip away the instinct to accept the universe's first no as an immutable law.
I love that. I want to leave you with a final provocative thought today, something to carry with you long after this deep dive ends.
Something to chew on.
We've talked about how unconventional thinking claims that nothing is impossible, only unachieved. I want you to look closely at the landscape of your own life right now. Think about your daily routines, your long-term goals, and, your deepest struggles.
What comes to mind first?
Yeah, what is the very first impossible limitation you've blindly accepted as an unchangeable fact of your existence? What is the one thing, a flaw, a situation, a dream, that you are absolutely certain cannot be fixed or achieved because the physics of your life just won't allow it?
A powerful question.
And what would happen if, starting tomorrow morning, you stopped looking at that limitation as a jagged, absolute, unchangeable wall? What if you treated it exactly like that definitively dead twig in the flower pot?
Just sit with it.
Exactly. What if you sat with it, refused to accept its finality, and demanded that your mind find a completely unconventional way to make it bloom?